Done it. Well, again, I want to just say good morning or good afternoon, depending on where this broadcast finds you. Can everyone see the full screen okay with the title for today's presentation? Teresa, we looking okay?
We are.
Great.
Thank you, Steve.
Well, really thrilled to have all of you here with us. I want to thank you. Very honored that you would take some time out of your schedule to be with us today for our behavioral health broadcast. This is our monthly behavioral health webinar, and we are in for a real treat today. We have Teresa Sault-Brill is back, and we'll be reviewing and discussing some really important issues, and we're looking forward to hearing from her. We want to try and keep this interactive, but I think what we'll do is sort of wait and see if we have a little time at the end. But if you really feel spirit move you and you want to jump in and make a comment or use the chat box to give some feedback, Teresa and I spoke before we came on, and we thought it would be a good idea to sort of give you that option. So keep that in mind as we go through. We are recording today's event, so keep that in mind as well as you post comments in the chat box. So again, I want to welcome you all to the behavioral health webinar here. I'm broadcasting to you live from the University of Iowa campus here at the College of Public Health. And I have Teresa Sault-Brill here with us, our speaker today. And I believe she will be broadcasting live from Saxon, Wisconsin. Am I right, Teresa?
Yeah.
Yes. And it might be a little colder and a little more snow up there, but we're still happy to have her here with us virtually today. So today's presentation is entitled "Taking Ourselves Back, Our Battle is at Home." And then the subtitle to think about is "When Our True Hunters, Warriors, and Healers Rise." I have a few intro slides, and then I'm going to transition and pull up Teresa's slides. I will be advancing her slides today. Excuse me. So just bear with us as we transition over to that new slide deck. Again, my name is Steve Steiny. I'm one of the managers here at the American Indian Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center here at the University of Iowa. As most of you may know, this event is brought to you by the National American Indian Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center, which is located, as I mentioned, at the University of Iowa. We are part of a much larger national network made up of 10 regional centers, a national Hispanic and Latino center, as well as a central coordinating office in Kansas City at the University of Missouri. Oops. This project is supported by SAMHSA, and the content is developed by the presenter, and the opinions and information presented today do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of SAMHSA, HHS, or the American Indian Alaska Native ATTC. Following today's event, we will send out a follow-up email. This may include links to today's slide presentation or a PDF copy of today's slides. We're also recording, so we'll have this event available to you at our Native Center for Behavioral Health ATTC archive, which has all of our recorded events held in a secure location. It is connected to YouTube, but you need to have a direct link in order to get in and access those video archives. They are not searchable on standard YouTube platform. Also, we will offer 1.5 CEUs. If you're interested in getting CEUs for today's event, you would just simply request that at the time that you receive the follow-up email. And lastly, there will be a link to our survey. There's a short survey that we ask you to fill out. A survey is very important to our center and to our funders. This ensures that we're able to continue to provide events such as this for you to attend. Of course, your participation is voluntary, but we really appreciate you taking just a few minutes to fill out this very short survey. You can skip any questions you would like. None of your information can be linked to you in any personal way, and everything is safe and confidential. if you have any questions about that survey, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to post my email link in the chat box today. So I also want to say that I know we're gathered here virtually today, but I do, and our center wants to take the time to acknowledge the land and pay respect to the Indigenous nations whose homelands were forcibly taken and inhabited. Please take a moment to read this land acknowledgement, which was created by 3 members of our team, Ella and Keely Driscoll, and our co-director, Mr. Sean Bear. Thank you. Well, as I mentioned earlier, today's speaker should be speaker, not speakers, unless, Teresa, you brought a guest with you. Today's speaker is Teresa Sault-Brill. She has a background and a lot of experience in working in different behavioral health fields, including the criminal justice and psychology fields. She is a traditional, spiritual, cultural woman, and I have really enjoyed getting to know her as a colleague and as a friend. She has a lot of experience working in the behavioral health field, as well as a vast knowledge of traditional ways, native ways. And she's here today to share some information, some of her own experiences and reflections on this information. It's a lot of information that will come at you, but again, we'll provide this in a PDF form, and you'll be able to access this and view this in a recorded video as well if you have a colleague that would like to see this. So remember, you're currently muted. Use the chat box to make comments or questions, and we may also, if you want to unmute and just ask some questions directly. We're going to try and save a little time at the end so Teresa can take questions directly, but let's be as interactive as we can with this and try and keep this an open dialogue going. Teresa, I'm going to pull down the intro slides. Really happy to have you here with us. And I'm going to see if I can get the next slide deck up. Let's see, I want to save that. Yes. Okay. Get us back to the beginning of the slides. See if I can do this without breaking anything. You'd think after 2 years I would be very slick at this, but 2 years of Zoom meetings. But let's see, I'm going to try this. Oh, and you know what I forgot to do, Teresa, was check the share audio button, because we do have a couple of short videos. Oh, I do have it checked. Okay. Great. Okay. Now I want to get this into presentation mode, and then we should be set. I'm going to try and swap this.
Thank you for doing all this, Steve.
Oh, of course. Listen, this is a privilege and an honor for me to be part of this presentation today. Can you all see the full screen? Teresa, we okay? Are we seeing the full screen here?
We are good.
That's wonderful. Well, I want to, without further ado, I want to turn the floor over to my colleague and friend, Teresa Sault-Brill. Teresa, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today, we're going to talk about taking ourselves back, trauma response and victim programming. So when our true hunters, warriors, and healers rise, where the power really is, where our problems really are our greatest battles. Excuse me. If we can go on to the next slide, Steve. So some of the things we'll be covering, just a brief of, but we'll get into it. I'm going to kind of try to fly over things and just may talk over a lot of these slides. I've left a lot of resources for you to have later when they send you the PDF version in the email. But what is being too human? That's something my father would say. And how is that not a traditional way of being? Traditional ways are what feeds the spirit and the body and the mind, and we are of a spiritual ways. So to connect with spirit and feed spirit, or if not, then you have that loss of connection, and then to which is good and true and pure. So with disconnect of what is good, then what openings are you having to be connected to? Our warriors, hunters, and heroes always learn to live to be true to self and for the best of the whole. So truth was always such an important thing of being honest with self and facing self, and dealing with that, and for many reasons. Trauma responses, which we'll get into, and victim mentality or programming and catching the cycles like our old ways. So as to who and what does it serve. So like our old ones would say, pay attention to your patterns. That they would pay attention to the patterns in the seasons, the animals, the plants, the medicines, our children and each other, and our growth, where we're at, where we're struggling. But this is something we're responsible for ourselves. And we watched it for each other, though, for sure, and helped each other along the way, and nudged each other. So some motivational interviewing is a great tool to use to try to get them to see for themselves. And again, the way you learn to survive might not be the way you want to continue to heal and live. So that's really important to understand. To survive something is tremendous. But to heal and live, to take life back, to take self back is the ultimate goal, right? So on to the next slide, if we can, Steve, thanks. What is being too human, and how is that not traditional ways of being? As I said, as Indigenous people, we are spiritual people, first and foremost, everything from wake to sleep to our dreams, from birth through death. So when we're walking in spirit, and to talk with spirit, to see spirit, to think of spirit in all we do. We connect with spirit and interact with spirit. So what spirit you're connecting with or open to on the level of, in the realm of, when or with or in these ways. And so it's important to think about, this was an article, and so this is just a part of it. And these are my kind of responses to some of the things in it. And I did that with a few things here, but ego, hurt, fear, anger, grudges, greed, so on down the line like that. What does that feed? And where does that bring us? To what level? And emotions are natural things. And so when we're being human, which we are, there's that good part of it, the balance teachings that we have in everything. To be off balance, we could be outside that circle or have the opening end. So we always understood that, what opening, what's coming in when we're off balance. Sickness can come, whether that comes in spiritual, mental, physical, and so on. So emotions are a good thing. There are natural alert systems that something is wrong or something is off. So how do we deal with that? How do we pay attention to that? And where is it coming from? We need to recognize, is this from a past thing? Is it something we haven't dealt with, a trauma response to it? So our attachments also was also something that we did not have. Attachments hinder the spirit. They literally weigh you down. They keep you in that level of, in that world of. In traditional ways, we had connectivity. So that is the differential. And so what do we do with those connections, and how do we care for them? Excuse me. On to the next slide, Steve. So it goes on, not caring for or tending to, lack of appreciation or gratitude for your blessings or gifts. We always honored and recognized our blessings and gifts. We have so many stories, from the things of blessings and gifts to our children, to ourselves, and what happens when you give that blessing or gift away, and in essence, when we respond or react, it is a choice, free will, to things like, he or she hurt me, and maybe it's your father, stepfather, your mother, or a significant other. So all of them are that way. I'm going to put up walls. And what do we give away? That's a blessing or gift. To love is one of the greatest things that we have. So, and these connections are beautiful things. So now we're attached to this ugliness, this hurt, this fear, this feeling with that wall. And we leave this opening for what to do what with that gift. So we have to decipher that. And then the mood or mind altering substances is something we never did. This includes foods and dairies, things like that are almost immediate responses that changes our ways of how we respond or feel about things. And if you ever did a food allergy test, you would see fried foods, things like that. So all of these things we understood, we didn't go for self-pleasure, whether it was to crutch or to comfort. It wasn't about that. We had our tools or our crutches. So these things, what are you feeding when you pick it up, when you use that? Can we go on to the next slide, Steve? So this is just under 3 minutes long to listen to. It might trigger you guys a little bit, the words in it, but it's something to think about, because this is a kind of what we're talking about, our past traumas, our generational traumas and dysfunctions, and a lot of those hurts that are hurting us that we're carrying. If you could play that, Steve.
DSW has all the sneakers.
Tell me what happened, Thomas. Tell me what's going to happen.
How do we forgive our fathers? Maybe in a dream. Do we forgive our fathers for leaving us too often or forever when we were little? Maybe for scaring us with unexpected rage, or making us nervous because there never seemed to be any rage there at all? Do we forgive our fathers for marrying or not marrying our mothers? For divorcing or not?
Sounds like it's starting over.
Are you guys not seeing the video?
It's not playing the video over
Okay,
here
yeah, let me,
either, and it
yep,
sounds like
I'm
it
sorry.
started right
Let me go
over.
back and see if I can't, let me see if I can't try this again. I don't know why, T, it's not doing that, but let me see if I can't, I thought I hit share audio. Maybe I need to hit share sound. I don't know why it's not showing. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to try this. Let me try.
The audio is plenty good
The audio is
to
good.
let them go into their own.
Yeah, let me try again here.
To think
You
about
guys seeing it now?
how many before them. It has got like the side notes and all of that, so it's not playing the video.
Okay, I'm going to try something.
If anything, they can just watch it later too. The link is in there.
I'm
and
going
we
to
can
see.
kind of go over the gist of it.
Let me see if I can't. Let me see if I can't pull this off. I'm so sorry, you guys. We even test ran this when we were. Here we go. I got it. Okay. Can you guys see it now?
Yes. Go, Steve. Here we go.
happened, Thomas? Tell me what's going to happen.
How do we forgive our fathers? Maybe in a dream. Do we forgive our fathers for leaving us too often or forever when we were little? Maybe for scaring us with unexpected rage or making us nervous because there never seemed to be any rage there at all? Do we forgive our fathers for marrying or not marrying our mothers? For divorcing or not divorcing our mothers? And shall we forgive them for their excesses of warmth or coldness? Shall we forgive them for pushing or leaning, for shutting doors, for speaking through walls,
Anissa!
or never speaking, or never being silent?
Anissa! Hello? You know Excel? Could you come? I don't know. I want moves. Can you come show me how to do this?
Did you talk about Excel?
Yeah.
The app?
No, on the computer. No?
Fine, go.
Do we forgive our fathers in our age, or in theirs, or in their deaths, saying it to them, or not saying it? If we forgive our fathers, what is left?
Oh, you're muted, Steve. Steve, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm going to get the PowerPoint back up here in just a moment. And we should be just fine.
The elders would say that when you are going to do something good or bring something good or plant a seed, how many bads will try to get in the way? I keep going, this is good. We are going to push through.
That's right. That's right. We'll get there.
This is good. Whatever you guys are going to do with us, who all hears this and where you take it to is going to be some immense goods, I'm guessing.
Oh boy. All right, there we go. We're back. I so sorry. I thought we could just play that video embedded right into the slideshow, but I still am on the learning curve. So I'm sorry, Teresa. We should be good to go. This is the next slide. So
it is what it is, and we will keep beating it. Okay, so forgiving ourselves and our families and the elder relatives before us and our teachers and our community members. So I guess I'm going to pause and go back to what are our statistics? We have the highest of them in everything, but when you think about what they are, domestic violence, addiction, depression, and physical health, heart disease, diabetes, we go on down the line of stuff. What is killing our people? And our warriors, our elders would counsel on these things when there was a threat, there was an enemy, when our people are going down. Who or what is it? If it was a bad spirit being, which I have some links in there and we'll get into the stories on how we dealt with that and faced that. So when we think about that, we know where our issues came from, and we understand what happened to our peoples. But where is the power now? What can we do? Once we know better, what can we do? And so I think about that, and I think about the hurts that we're carrying. What is it we're carrying? Free will, the teachings of that as well. What do bad spirits feed off of, play upon? And yes, physiological, it can turn and oftentimes into whether physical health, mental health, things like that. So when we're forgiving ourselves, and not so much the word forgiving in the Christian context, but truth is being so powerful and liberating to know the truths of, I didn't know better. This was learned behavior, to recognize where did this come from and what do I know now? And our teachings would say things like, always being in that light of public, even when we're alone, because spirit is there, our ancestors are there. So now that we know better, we hold ourselves accountable. We do not victim blame, but we can what now? And in a good way, not go to the negative extreme with that. So carrying hurt, anger, shame, remorse, all these things, what does it serve? And it takes place within self. You can literally feel that heaviness inside you, or you're thinking going off into this direction. You lose that piece of you, right? So to get that back, and in a good and a safe way. So our fight is at home now. And so in letting go, what does that mean? Not forgetting what happened, but taking the wisdoms out of it, making that safety plan, and creating those healthy boundaries. And what are we going to do instead of protective walls or barriers? The balance teachings. What path does that take you down to envision that? We are spiritual ways to so to connect with spirit and feed that spirit, or the loss of connection to that which is good and true and pure. So we ask self, what does my choice or response serve? And these are just a few things to get your guys' gears going and use for tools when you're working with folks, to ask self, is this a choice or a response? So is it things like victim stagnant, survival mode, stuck in that past memory haunting us, or seeing only what's in the now? This is the learning, the healing, the growth, the moving forward, or the striving to work for creating a better future, or us, or life. Does this choice or response serve the immediate? So is it kind of just releasing or dumping, or is it serving the future, taking self and your life back? Does this choice or response contribute to the healing of my ancestors and self? Does this contribute to setting myself and ancestors free of trauma or learned dysfunctional ways, and so on? Or does this habit or choice nurture or take from what I'm truly about or capable of? We in our teachings understands sometimes spirit walks when we pass on. The things that we're carrying with us are heavy with us, or we didn't learn from. And so sometimes our families before us that have these heavy wounds, my dad was a residential school survivor, and I went there, and there's still some that are carrying that with them. And people talk about those children, some that stayed, so many elders that sat with me crying in their memories of, and the children that they were pulling upon because they were still holding on to that memory. And those children that passed away in that time from that memory would sometimes come in and try to say, I'm okay now. So when we heal ourselves, we get that lesson, that memory, we take back what was from the trauma, we take back our lives, our way of life. Those that are with us kind of get that. They're, oh, that epiphany, that, and they too are released sometimes. And in thanks, in celebration of, they're hoping and praying, you guys, come on, you guys, you got this, and things like that. And so finally they're like, they did it, they're there, and they're going to be all right, and things like that. So can we put the next slide on? I'm trying to zip through. Those images, as you notice, is kind of the differential, being deliberate and not being fearful, in that past slide. So always to look within, the power is within. That is where our only power is within self and free will. Things happen to us. Our statistics say it may happen to us many times through our lifetime, different things. We have no power over that. We can create safety plans and healthy boundaries. And we can do what we can, but we need to move forward and take our life and take our walk back in the same time. And the power is within. So what can we do? I really struggle with the word forgiveness, but I know it's a common word that so many people understand and use or understand in their own context. It is just the definition to me, you need to be where you need to be with it. It is just detaching from that, not making that their ugliness a part of your identity, to be as if you never been. Take that back, and to forgive self, to let self say, it's okay, you were hurting, it's okay, that was a part of the process, things like that, and be proud of self and where you're going. And so always looking within, that power within. First, we would think about is, what is my part in this? What can I do? What can I change? Was it even your part, or was that all them? If not one's place, who is it to go from there? So also the enabling portion, because in our ways, we never were focused on self. We thought of the people, but then there's the balanced teachings where it's enabling now and deflecting. So you have to take care of self first before you can take care of significant other, before you can take care of family, before you can take care of community. So what is your part in it? Are you the parent? In our teachings, we would talk about holding teachers even accountable. If somebody did something, where did you learn that? We go to their teacher or their relative. And did you teach them that? And we would hold them accountable in our old ways. They may turn on you and say, I can no longer teach them. This isn't my family, my relative, to do such a thing. So we didn't stand by the side of dysfunction and things like that. That is a part of dysfunctional ways, to say no matter what, and then be taught to become quiet about it. We spoke up in our ways, and always were about maintaining that healthy balance and living that good life. Or else, what spirit were we feeding? We understood that, and we wanted to make Creator and our ancestors proud. If to have a role or a part in, we lost the slide there, Steve. There we go. And
Did I
that
get it
is,
back?
if you're accountable to it. Thanks, Steve. When you're sorry, one may feel remorse, things like that, embarrassment and shame. So again, we think about what we can do, those waves, those ripples, how we can turn things around if you can, when given opportunity. And what can you do? Once again, we go back to, we sought counsel, but from those who were knowledgeable in that area of what that was. Survivor mode is a slippery slope we got to be careful with. It is not a way to live. Survival mode isn't living. It is a way to survive and get through a situation. But it is not living. We got to come beyond that situation, and that is truly taking back. And we knew the bad spirits did not want us to be back in our paths, fulfilling our prophecies and our roles in seventh generation and coming back. We were to be doing this in our taking our DNA back by rewiring ourselves. My dad would speak on innate knowledge we are born with, and it's in our prophecies as well, of being born with the old one's spirits, but also generational trauma. If you think about the neurology of the brain, you can only really give so much focus on one side or the other. So what are we going to do with that? If it is something, again, like that emotion that's coming up, okay, maybe there's a lesson we need to learn there. We recognize that lesson, and then we go back into it. We tap into that innate knowledge to work with that lesson so we can move on. Taking our spirit direction, growth, and beauty back. Stepping into self and not our stereotypes, our traumas, our ancestors' traumas. And if we can go into the next slide. It is hard. We tend to wrap our identity around it for so long. I've heard so many people say that they feel empty when they actually release all of that past trauma. Creator gave us such an interconnectedness. And he promised us and has kept all of his promises about being able to get back, and we would be able to find our ways back. So even without these elders here, which was part of our prophecy, is the elders of old with teachings of old, we would be able to find our way back through the interconnectedness. We followed truth. Truth was always liberating, as they said, and it is powerful. Oop, we lost the slide again, Steve. There it is. So things like the foods that you may need to help yourself heal. These are just general examples to give you, but it is in everything. So you can have fun with groups or with yourself going, what does reflect that? And then see if you can think about the nutrients behind it. When you look at the tree or the tree of life, you know, when you turn it upside down by the fall season, it becomes the earth and what it feeds, and then the air and the lungs, good and bad, right and wrong, day and night, sun and moon, male, female. So the balance teachings as well. So to think about the balance when you're looking for the interconnectedness. Let me go to the next slide, Steve. Complex, compound, is simple in what is. So again, with the balance teachings, when we have issues, they seem to be complex and compounded, and that is the bad. They love to cause confusion, tear you in multiple directions, things like that. And Creator in our teachings and what is good has always been about what is simple, including that interconnectedness. So to try to not get caught up in that rabbit hole, so to speak, and what's complex and compound, detach emotionally from it, step back and look at what is simple and what is. What do I have power over? What can I do? What do I need? And go through the basic assessments where you can start there, like they say. The reflection of our choices and our responses, like the ripple in the water teachings. To look at that, to start paying attention and noticing and tracking that. So what will feed your tree of life, and what will produce or leave behind to feed the next seasons, so to speak. And that is our humor. That really is, it was clean and it was ironical and it got you thinking again. And so to think about, what is it feeding? You know, what would this choice feed? And that was how we kind of looked at things and counseled on things. So the ways is always was to move forward, because that is the momentum. That is how life goes. So to sit stagnant in or holding on or being in the past, you really can't truly do that. So you open up again a piece of yourself, what can come in and play upon that? And then you're missing this present here. Can we go on to the next slide, Steve? So the gray area and the fine line, finding the balance and the truth in culture. We're very cautious about that gray area. Gray area could mean cutting corners, mixing of ways, and all of that. So confusion can come in there, tasks can come in there. Things aren't always bad, but we understood that and didn't want to take those kind of risks. So here's an article I had seen, and I put all the sources in there and cited them. And this is a little bit about victim mentality and how to handle it, how to recognize it. And here's my kind of responses and the differentials to it. We can relate very much to what this is talking about, but at the same time, you can see as Indigenous people, in some ways it doesn't relate. The victim grates you with poor me attitude and is allergic to taking responsibility, and this goes on. And like I said, I'm going to kind of talk through these, and this is for you to go ahead and go over later to think on. Now many of our people are victims, and due to things like nepotism, gang issues, racism, and we have systemic racism, differential treatment. We have the generational stuff since before that. So the compound complex, and we're looking at that dark, bad in the sicknesses and our issues, as our teachings would even say leads to, and where we're at. So yes, it is. It is a poor thing. It is horrible. But where is our power? And these are our teachings. We refocus. You do have that moment of change is much like death. And so you have that moment of mourning, that moment of you're in and that time to go through. But once you're there, mourning is over like death, change is here. We go beyond. You become overwhelmed by the endless tales of woe. Yes, that can happen even in ourselves. But again, in an in country, we get re-victimized. Our statistics say we're dealing with this. If not, a relative it is endless tales of woe. We need to have that compassion and understand, this is happening to them. And even though things keep happening, let's not desensitize ourselves. Let's not become numb too. We lose that piece of our heart. But we need to think about again, where is our power in it? So the article goes on, people must take responsibility for their own lives. We do believe in justice and vindication. Do we always get that? That could be another just injustice upon injustice. Again, where do we have power and what can we do with that? We got to be able to take back. I can only listen for 5 minutes unless you're ready to discuss solutions, is something to say if you have somebody who just wants to dump, vent. In our ways, it was solution based and is. So we would dump out or lay out the problem. We would bring it to the council, the table, the people, whatever, the medicine person, spiritual person, depending on what the problem was and where you went with it. But we were also about what next? What can we do? And that solution based of thinking and seeing. So again, moving forward, empowerment. And then the article ironically says, unless you're fighting to survive genocide and things like that, does this, not pertain? And I kind of chuckled because we are. And so again, but we are slipping into that slope of victim mentality. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So here's just some characteristics of survivals of abuse. And I promised you guys in the last webinar, I would give you a Christian resource, even though I'm not. But because some of our people do go that way, this one's from a Christian source. But yet we can definitely relate to a lot of this and see this in a lot of our folks and even in ourselves at times, I'm sure. When we look at and think about our old ones, think about somebody who sometimes, maybe your white neighbor, who you think they don't understand what we're going through and they get to have this life and they don't have to deal with this. If you hear yourself or hear somebody else, that might be jealousy, validly so, but why? What is it your heart is really saying? That's negative talk. It's ugly talk. It's harsh. It's true. But here's the other truth. And the truth that can be liberating, because this truth is, and we can go nowhere with it. It doesn't serve us anything. The other truth is, what if we didn't have this ever happen to us and we could catch ourselves in this? And we didn't have to respond that way every day as if it didn't happen, but we got the smarts at least from this. And so we can handle it better. We can go on better. You are not going to hinder my life, my path with spirit, my connection to spirit. I'm going to get my culture back. My daughters, and so on. So this is how we begin to empower in just one kind of way, is eye-opening. Do I catch myself or my loved one in it? Is this how we're going to identify ourselves? Is this us, or is it taken what part of me and from what? Can we go on to the next slide, Steve? I know it's hard. I know you guys. What are you or yours armed with? And so they talk about emotional baggage or somebody coming into a relationship with baggage. The cliche kind of sayings of, if you accept me, you accept all my baggage. But really, do we love and care for ourselves in traditional ways? We wanted to make sure that we took care of ourselves. I had no Nida from the teams talking about one day we bring our baskets in marriage ceremonies. When we wanted to court to marry someone, we bought our basket, our bundle, and what was in it was our gifts and where we come from and what we're about and what was in that basket or bundle, why I can bring two and be a good part of this marriage and this family and the people. And the elders of that family would go through that basket, that bundle, to see, is this a good fit with their bundle? And so where and how do we think bringing our baggage in was something that would be proud of? We would deal with, we would handle, we would let go. Our warriors after war went to ceremony and dealt with those deaths and that blood that they touched. They would let go and handle that spirit so it is not on them and attached, and they could move forward to continue to protect wholly and not have these openings and these things weighing them down and haunting them when they're trying to be there for the people. Can we go on to the next slide, Steve? Talk. Understandings and perspective can be liberating. So as the truth they are, they always say truth is liberating. A lot of our people are tending to take cliches and things, I call it cookie cutter culture, at the surface and not thinking deep within. To look at both sides of these truths on this, I love. On this here talks about understandings. And so it's an old Indian woman. It's her 107th birthday. And this individual says to her, they took your land. They took all of our lands. She said it wasn't ours to keep. And then they said, they gave you smallpox blankets. She said, but we survived the winter. They broke your treaty, she said, but it was merely paper. They stampeded the buffalo at you when you stood by the cliffs, and she said our spirits flew and became eagles and hawks and crows. And this person said they killed your leaders, and she said they became our ancestors. And so on down the line it goes. At the end, that elder woman talks about, I used to be angry like you until I woke up and realized my life is their constant failure. To think about there in this context, it's living out of spite in some ways. We don't live out of spite. Again, what are we living with? What spirit are we walking with to be in that way? Both of these sides are absolute truths. You carry this truth in your heart. How does your heart feel? How does your eyes start to become? Where does your thinking start to go in your steps in your life, your attitude about things, your character, your heart? The other truth, what can you do with that truth? So what truth are we going to carry? That innate knowledge, that generational trauma, they are both truth. We can take the wisdom from it and know next time if we were to make a treaty or a contract or an agreement, we have that wisdom. That's all we're taking. But we have this truth, and that's what we're going to live with and go on with and hold and hear. I had a Black woman years ago when Black Lives Matters down in a city come up to me and say, you know what I mean? She was in a conversation with this white lady, and I was at a gym, my earbuds were in, and I what? And she said, I'm angry. And she started going on, and I went, oh, yeah, I understand. I understand with my daughters, with myself, with my loved ones, with the elder friends of mine, all of the injustices, the racism, the treatments here and there, all this that we deal with. Oh, I get it. It is an instant response because what are we going to do? Cry when they don't treat us right? When they do this to our loved one? They're not going to care. But at the same time, we got to come from heart. We got to come from this heart. We got to understand that when we run around angry, what is it we were really feeling when that happened? Overwhelmed, scared, tired. We lose our heart and our connection to self, what we're really feeling. And then we hear too many of our people at some juncture saying things like, I don't even know how I feel anymore. I don't know why I feel the way I feel anymore, and things like that. So there's such a place we get to by going down this path. Can we go to the next slide, Steve? I don't have to start zipping through these. So here I'm kind of give you guys a bunch of tools you guys can use and remake however you need. But we always teach about path splitting, the good, the bad, right, wrong, dark, light. Even though darkness wasn't always bad, it's where our creation is and the universe and those teachings. Since Christianity, a lot of our goods have been demonized, including our little people, sacred places, and things like that. So again, with truth, getting back to truth, what really is, and using our critical thinking and reconnecting with self to learn the difference. So, and then the gray area. So, and to kind of think about going down those different paths and taking the steps. Where does it lead? Where does that crossroads? Because it's one direction or the other. It's going to take you, your heart, your character, your life, your connectivity, whatever it is that you're dealing with. So on the one side, maybe to be open, and on the other side's that dissonance, our programming, and where we're at, that wall that we're shutting down, and all that we've been fed for so long. Can we go to the next slide, Steve? So our hunters, warriors, trappers, fishers, and medicine people, and of course our elders and all of them. With children, we notice and recognize the patterns and changes and tracks, and when support was needed or counsel, we went to one who knew beyond in that specific area. So we didn't always have one teacher or elder. Different ones had a more in-depth knowledge or connectivity to. And our children's were also our teachers to pay attention. And sometimes as a group we went to face and deal with, and sometimes it's a family matter we do together. And we go on to the next one, Steve. So tracking the problem and finding our focus, we would track, like I said, and notice changes, patterns, all of that. So how can we notice that in our health, in our choices, in our dreams, and our emotional responses to things? So this is just another kind of tool to utilize. The elders would talk about this always, how they would look at determining who the enemy is and who to protect and what needed protection. So we start this, I got the spirit door open there for that death and rebirth, the beginnings and cycles. But in the East, who is the victim or what is suffering? What was the loss or the cost of it? And who or what is to gain? What got fed? And now that you know all of this, who, what, or where is the enemy or the problem? And so you can now get empowered, how you can deal with it, what you can do and what can't do, and where you can let go and make that peace with, it's not in my hands, and what hands are they in, and where can you turn it to? And again, more empowerment. So who, where, or what to tend to, protect, and care for, and the needs. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. The bads, dysfunctional or toxic. So again, to look at choices we're making, whether it's past ones, to work on that and just take one little situation at a time, and look at it and see how it spirals. So here's another tool you guys are welcome to utilize and alter. And so again, it starts in the East with choice. That is something that we have that spirits do not have, especially the bads. They do not have free will. And that is what makes us ultimately most powerful at this time in our teachings, is our free will. Why they're always trying to play upon that is what we understood. So our choice that we made, do we choose to go into denial, to run away, to shut down, avoidance, to not even deal with it, to argue, to get in a fight, to use a crutch like alcohol or other drugs, suicidal idealization, or actually committing suicide? And the effects or consequences, later outcomes, and what you wish you would have done if you could have turned that back. So the lessons, and then who or what got fed, and then the rebirth, the fruition of choice. So if we could look at something in our past and we're working through it, what ended up spiraling next? And was it good? Was it bad? The turnarounds? And would you be proud of yourself? Would little kid you be proud of you? And or do you have regrets? And what can you do with those, if anything, now? And then to make your peace again and move on to the next slide, Steve. So here's another tool I'm just giving away for you guys to use and tweak to cater to your tribe and the need. This is good, functional, or healthy tracking. So kind of like the previous one, the choice and what can it be, and then what goods would really come of it. So you can kind of side by side look at it and work through your options and to kind of see, you know, because if you're not used to it, you have so long been responding from that victim mentality, trauma-based responses. You have these emotional outbursts sometimes, or things like that, instant wall, instant shutdown, instant attachment, whatever it is. And so it can feel very vulnerable and uncomfortable, foreign, to make that good choice. It feels almost powerless, because the bads, they would say, will whap you upside your life to show their power, but the goods are soft and gentle and fruitate. And fruitation takes time, growth, and you see the movement of it in spirit. So, and how do we feed that spirit to let it come in when there's all this other that's been in? So another tool again. Can we go on to the next one? So many of the peoples are scared. This is something that somebody shared with me from Indian country, actually down in LCO years ago, that I knew for many, many years. And this person was tough, and up on another res growing up, everybody knew, like nobody would have thought this person to be scared. And many, many years later, as this individual became older, was reflecting back and said, you know, I was scared. I was scared of everything. And I thought about this for years now and looked around Indian country and went, wow, we are. Like it manifests in all kinds of different forms. And our people as an Anishinaabe were related to the wolf and taught about with the wolf, and we walk side by side with each other, and we're much like each other in ways. And at one point till we had to walk our own path, but what comes to one would come to the other, and vice versa. What happens if a wolf is been tainted by toxic waters and gets ill, or is eating just the garbage food we left out that we've been eating, and the system starts getting off and its thinking starts getting off? It becomes susceptible to more sicknesses, or is backed into a corner and has been abused and is getting snappy, right? So we have, when you think about a lifespan, whether it's today or our elders ago, what they've encountered from birth up, what they've witnessed from birth up, and what they've ridden in the car by the side through, what they had to go and rescue out of, how much dysfunction and trauma, and how much it hurts the heart when we are innately born such a spiritual and good people. And we forget that because we buy into the stereotypes. We see ourselves out the other eyes of the world around us. The wolf does look into you and see what you're seeing. Are you a threat? Are you scared? Are you coming at me? So we tend to tap into that in the communities around us and the families around us. And we're seeing out eyes we probably shouldn't even regard, but we've been taking that on. We've been taking that on. So the fears can be valid, but it does lead to trauma-based responses over time for too many, causing again the compounded and complex issues and needs. Can we go on to the next slide? So this is such a touchy thing and no easy way to try to say this, but yes, over time and over choices, over things like food and your thoughts, how thoughts become things, things can be your neural wiring. We have physiologically, many of us developed many of these diagnoses. Some of us, it can be reversed with the balance teachings. So mind, body, and spirit, diet, reconnection, these tools. But many of our people are using these diagnoses as a crutch, and that's where our victim mentality is coming in. You are hearing parents and grandparents saying things with, well, I have been diagnosed with anxiety and depression, so I can't even deal with my adult child and my grandchildren who are cycling out from the abuse I gave them, from the abuse I got from here, and I didn't get to heal. So again, now it's cycling out in more ways. This isn't our traditional ways of being. Again, what spirit feeds off of that. If they have these tools, initially, they may not have ended up with these diagnoses. If they have these tools now, they may be able to have oftentimes, such a better quality of life or even reversal of these diagnoses. Some of it takes time. Time it takes to develop this, time it takes to reverse it, consistency, a way of life. So when you look at things like anxiety or panic disorders, things like that, disassociation, we have a lot of spiritual people who are really connected and may not have learned their gifts in a good way. And the bads have been whapping them. They're picking up on all of this. So they just shut down. They just shut down, but they're still picking up on stuff. So when they have these tools to be grounded in earth, to get out and breathe again, to reconnect to what creator envisioned and sees us in that world, in that light, the food, the balance is so important. No cutting corners here. Try to get back to your cultural staple foods. If not, what would have nutrients that would be similar to that? Okay. And so on and so on down the line. Can we go to the next slide? I know we're cutting short on time here. I think you guys are getting the gist of this. Innate knowledge or generational traumas, again, as my dad spoke on, there is a Korea I was recently talking with. He grew up in the old ways in Western Canada. He's now living in Toronto. He was 13 years old when they removed him from the teepee, and all he spoke was Cree. He then was brought into residential school, and he's in his 50s. He wants the people to remember that we are innately good. We are good. We're forgetting our hearts, or forgetting our spirits is that, and to remember that we have been responding and walking in and carrying. And it's true, it's valid what we've gone through. If you've ever been sexually abused, you feel dirty. You feel like everybody sees you. You feel like you're less than. You feel all these different things, or may feel. And that's just sexual abuse. What about, domestic violence? What about a parent that abandoned you? What about? And so we're carrying this with us, and we are forgetting our beautiful big hearts and where they come from, and the love that has thought about us and prayed about this generation, and our role in it, and what we can be doing now, and where we can be, because we're too busy going, this was outlawed. And yes, try to go spearfishing in northern Wisconsin or things like that. You may get shot at. This is true. Are you still going to go? Do we carry that fear? What can you do with that fear? You know, we can create some protection. We can do the best we can. But if you're going to go anyway, go in spirit. Don't let them take that from you, because either which way, right? And this is how our ancestors lived and were about, even when they were initially rounding them up, right? So to remember that innate knowledge, remember that good. And so we are given choice and only so much ability to tap into. So that saying of which wolf will you feed? And to think about that constantly, to take back, but always those safety measures, safety precautions, because yes, this is real, what we go through, healthy boundaries, not walls and barriers. So to look at the differential. And this here between stimulus and response, there is space, and that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth, and then builds our character and so on as it goes. In our life, in our spirit, and what happens to us ultimately when we go on. And we've seen too many funerals in Indian country where it's heavy and dark. And this here is correct. In our teachings, in the spiritual understanding of that, is that space between stimulus and response is where spirit moves, mostly bad spirit. Wants to test you, wants to push you, wants to nudge you, because it has not that power, and we do. That is the power we have. That is what the goods want us to remember. So to take and pause if you can, and think about, where am I responding from? And maybe that is an alarm for you, to let you know, I got to deal with this, and that needs to no longer be. So we can respond like our old ones would. And choose. Can we go to the next slide, Steve? So Wendigo and other such beings that feed, that Cree even spoke about it. Too many of our teachings have been tainted, whether it's been translated from the monks and the priests into another context and made ugly in ways, or whether it's from residential school survivors, responding in a almost a way that fear has consumed them, fear of God. And so now they bring forward that ugliness. And so things got tainted a little bit, and the little people got demonized. They're not all of them are bad, balanced teachings. In our teachings, depends on how you treat them and how you come and what spirit you're walking with. The Wendigo in our teachings initially, the way I understand, and so does this Cree and others, is that it was a spirit being that wasn't good initially, and it didn't have a body. It was just a spirit being. I call it the bads, and bads could be spirit beings that were always a spirit, something that was once human and became and turned bad, turned away. There's different forms and levels of bad. And this Wendigo just develops an appetite. It looks for an opening, a space. Usually the bodies, they say, were found with a hole in the head. That is an opening in the mind. When you think about it, things weren't always so black and white. So that between stimulus and response and your weakness, we always were about that weakness and ego and things like that that were in check. And so when we think about these things, we were always very cautious also about talking about the bads and bad spirits. We were careful when and how often. We did not like to feed in or tap into that. It was the goods. We didn't want to bring that spirit about, so we were careful with that. And so all of these things about next to the Wendigo, when you heal trauma, you heal and so on down the line, these are the different openings also as well that we have. And those spirits will feed and nudge upon. So today our people are so obsessed with the bads and focused on it, the tricksters all over. They know more of the trickster stories but they are not getting the lessons out of it and the perspective of the old ones on it, when they would look at the trickster doing that and what safeguards they took. Instead they're seeing power. What tells us what on ourselves? We're feeling powerless. So what can we do? What do we feel powerless about? How can we rebuild self and get back to that space? Okay, next slide, because I know we're zipping through time, and I really hope to if any of you want to jump in there. We understood matter. We walked in truth. We held self and each other accountable. And I'm going to zip through this, and I know you guys can have the PDF version so you can look at it yourselves later. What we live for and because of, and how we always devoted and walked and gave our life to. What is it really about? Is it about self and my right to feel this way? You know what? I got a lot of rights to feel a whole lot of ways, and I could really be hating on a lot. And so could my kids. So could this elder of mine, my dad. I could go on to, oh, they got rights, right? They've been through some stuff, but they also have these rights and these blessings and these gifts, and they smartened up from. And because of it, here I am. Because of it, so many are, and they were, and they got to be finally. Did my dad go down at the end? He would say, still healing from residential school. Yes. But would you know, looking at him, would you know with all the wisdom he brought, would you know with the joy he carried and lived? True joy wasn't induced from alcohol or numbing anything. He was working through. So some things may take a long time, but it doesn't have to take away from. And then knowing we're only a part in that moment, the ripples that go beyond. So we understood accountability and things. So to stop and think again, we always had to face honestly our every thought, feelings upon, and things like that. So it goes into matter. We understood that things do matter. Somebody comes in and starts messing with our peoples, our entire camp. You know, we got history with the Lakota over here. We got history with Mohawk back home. We made a lot of amends since then, but do we have feelings towards them? We have an understanding. And if we see them, we took safeguards. But when we didn't see them, we went on with our lives. We didn't have to carry this, you know, we just had that understanding, that knowledge to have these safeguards. We still didn't jump to war right away. We scouted them out. What were they up to? You know, what was going on? So we always had to face honestly our every thought and feelings upon things and what was coming from spirit, vision. We can be fooled. And I have some links in the bottom of this presentation, lots of resources and slides to dip into. And there's a Danae on there who talks on things that I think a lot of us can understand and agree upon. And he talks about basically a false one, something dressed up as good that really you find out is full of it. It is the reflection of something that isn't. So matters do bear weight, and we understood this. That weight can be, this matters to me, this hurt, this made me angry. In that place, what did it take before that event occurred? What was there? It can become physiological, stomach ulcers, high blood pressure, IBS, fibromyalgia, arthritises. It can become where our central nervous system, every time we replay it, a leaky blood-brain barrier. And now we have what? Bipolar coming on. We have schizophrenia. It could be a spirit constantly messing with us. It could be spiritual. But we didn't know how to handle that. We're not learning anymore. So we need to find out how to protect ourselves and not connect to them bad ones, to go, oh, cool. Is that what you're up to? All right. I'm going to go this way and make these safeguards today and move on my way. You're not going to hinder this. Or do we tap into that and go into that rabbit hole? Is it a good one? Do we utilize our gifts? And if we don't, it could be traumatizing us. This bad one is saying this bad one is showing me this. And all of that our body physically responds to. And so that can physically become schizophrenia, because the brain is trying to process that. Those adrenalines, all of those chemicals are very wonderful. They're alert systems like the wolf. But if it is being misused and not used appropriately and handled and recognized and then moved forward with and rebalanced, then it starts eating away at, right? Too much of anything, balanced teachings. So matters can take thoughts off and away from what is really true. You can get into this tunneled and narrowed, when in a way, as if you ever saw our old ones in our ways, we thought from this place, and all of these understandings, perspectives, and spirit flows through there. This tunneled place was never a good place. You're getting attached to what and sucked in. Can we go on to the next slide? Because I know time is getting really Thanks, Steve. Bad beings need openings to be fed. So again, it goes back to the beginning. These are a lot of the things, even clutter. We didn't have physical attachments to things. We weren't about things. And so with the way I learned, if something was sentimental to you, you might carry that medicine for a time, but at some point you're going to pass that on, right? So you knew, and not caring for, attending to your gratitude, your appreciation, knowing where your gifts come from, seeing where it came from, even a teaching that an elder brought. How much did that elder endure? How much inspiration? Where did that go through and all the way up to bring me this knowledge? All of that is a gift. And then I remember that elder and I pass that on. This knowledge didn't come from me. Anything I share here today or ever came from our elders, came from spirit, came from creator. This is where I give thanks and give credit to. I can only take accountability for opening my mouth. So on to the next slide. This is just a quick, it's under a minute long. And if you guys want to listen to it real quick, I think this is amazing. And it's so true.
I'm going to try it. Teresa, let's see if I can break this or if I can make it work here. Are you guys seeing it? Are you seeing it?
No.
Snickers.
Okay. All right, hold on.
It won't play anything on the video, but this image that's on there anyway, if we could just have the audio.
Oh, okay. Can you guys hear it?
I wish I'd been taught how to protect my heart, not from Satan or sin or person or the dark. It's from myself, the child, the destructive shadow, to feel unwanted.
I think it lost sound, Steve. That's okay. We can go on to the next slide. I'd rather open it up for people here soon. It's the resources there. You guys can listen to this later. The links are there. And it's also in the bottom with the references. Defend the Sacred. You'll see it down there. It is under a minute long. It's worth listening to. And it's a part of, I believe, our 7th generation teachings and taking back. And what is our role and place in it and things like that. Do the next slide, Steve.
Did I get the slide back up?
The next one.
Yeah.
There we go. So balance teachings again in the wolf. To think about that wolf or however your tribe's teachings are, the individual you're working with, to ask them to think about that a wolf backed into the corner is kind of like trauma response, you know, an abused wolf. Oftentimes we can misinterpret things. We're not really seeing what's before us. So are we being fooled? And then now who's fooling us but ourselves? If we haven't healed and let go with, we're losing our moments. And then what can come in and play off of that? So healthy responses typically are, in our traditional ways, we recognize an issue or need. We didn't have much anxiety or fear or panic about it. That wouldn't be a normal response. We just went, oh, okay, something's off balance here, or there's a threat here, there's a need here. And we went to the next step in where we go with that. And then we don't take it personal. You know, this might have been happening before us, may happen after us. Is it personally impacting us? If it is personal, then this is a personal matter. And then we took those steps on how we dealt with that, right? And so not to respond from ego. We never were about ego or self. Ego comes from another place. And we seek communication to tend to the matters. If matters cannot be resolved, we may engage others to help. And that's where we went from there. We took proper steps in restoring the balance and the peace again. That's ultimately what things were about. Can we go on to the next slide? So in the wolf pack is to maintain and healthy perseverance of life. I'm using that. That's a lot of my tribes. Again, look at your tribe, but I know it's kind of a cliche that everybody can relate to, the good wolf or the bad wolf, which do you feed? When you think about wolves that are rabid or sick and things like that and their responses, but in dysfunctional ways, they tend to stand by now today because you're related or from that inner group, gang mentality, things like that. Well, that's your mom. You got to no matter what. So just because she's got a gambling problem, it's still your mom. So I'm going to need you to go run them drugs because she ain't been paying the bills. And you do it. You just do it. A lot of our people are at a younger age until they go, hey, I got a family. And even then, or you become a caretaker of the, you know, and you're enabling and things like that. We develop these expectations for everybody to do everything for them, things like that. That's the dysfunctional. But when you, and that's also a trapped wolf, a teamed, you know, things like that. A wolf not treated as a wolf, not being of ourselves, of the true, what we were created to be in that spiritual way and walking that life. In the healthy way, wolves would oust others if they were acting toxic, plain and simple. They handle it. And wolves always knew their role or place within, and so did our people. We know our role and our place and our part and within and what to bring, and that's it. We didn't cross those lines. If we were about to, we felt there was a need to, we sought counsel on it. Can we go to the next slide? So here I have just a couple of slides I'm giving away to you guys. We're not really going to go over it, but I've noticed all over the different communities I've been through, our people are behind in so many ways. So developmentally, whether it is normal life skills, whether it is adulting skills, whether it is emotional behavioral response skills, all of these things, relationship skills, we are behind in a lot of ways. Everybody in a different way. A child could be pretty advanced in this, but behind in that. Same thing with an adult or an elderly. Then the next slide, Steve. We're going to zip through these last slides here, just so you know. So again, so here's some more resources. These are just ones just to let you know that it's out there and see what pertains as you go through them, from the teens to the all the way to, you know, elderly, and the different kind of ideas to get your gears going and work with. Just kind of see where, you know, I've worked in the treatment centers and going over some of this, I couldn't believe the responses. I mean, if they do not have some of these skills, how do we expect them to not relapse, not find a crutch when they get home? Because this just breaks you as an adult, right? So these are important. We got to start seeing where our people are at in helping them develop. What is it you need? How do we pick up? Where would you hold your head up and feel like you're capable and able now? Can we go on to the next slide? And this we're not going to play, but this is a great song. I love how he's by the water grabbing the earth, and he talks about fear eating you up and spitting you out, and it is inspiring about getting over fear. It is a great song. So it's just another resource. There's so many resources out there, and music is so powerful to our people. So it's just something that, you know, maybe you can share with somebody. On to the next slide, Steve. And we're just going to zip through these last ones. I mean, zip. So this one's just more story resources that talks about the different bad spirits, and the teachings on that, the different lessons on that, not to get caught up in the bads and in the bad encounters, not to tap into that darkness, but to get the lessons and how we overcome. What is it that made that person open or vulnerable, and checking self and each other in that and going, hey, so can we go on to the next slide, Steve? And there's more there. And then the next slide, Steve. We're just going to zip through these ones here. another one. So as you can see, there's more and more slides on this with resources. There's so many out there, and it's vast. The other tribes, so depending what tribe you're working with, but you can see the interrelatability, this inner understanding that we had across the board. We got it. We got it. That this is real and it is important. And it still is today. It doesn't matter what year it is, just because we have modern time and a lot of people lost belief in. But this here talks about this little saying from Chief Jan George is so important about love, and how we turn in on ourselves and feast on ourselves is so important. And we are looking at a form of a Wendigo at that point, and other openings, and how we're destroying ourselves. So something to think about in our traumas that we've gone through and what we're carrying, or our loved ones are. Catch them in it. Don't let them do this to themselves. The next slide. So these are additional online resources. Some of it's behavioral health, mental health. Some of it again is that developmental stuff. This MK Ultra in the Operation Monarch, I have met so many people of our peoples across the board that are into this. I learned it from them going, did you know about this? The thing is, our people, even up into the 70s, have been a part of government things like sterilization programs. We have such a distrust of, plus with the traditional background teachings on, so our innate knowledge of something bad playing you, using your mind, using your life, using your heart, using you, to have that innate teaching, and then it turned into such a place, this rabbit hole. Whether it is true or not, I don't wage in on. It's not for my life path, but to respect and honor, and then to try to look at, is this something that, you know, what they're about. Computers, cell phones, and video games has become a serious addiction and deflection for our people. It's very serious. So something else to look at. And then that's about it. There's more slides or resources for you guys. And then at the very bottom, there is the references, so you can find all of this online if you would like. If anybody would like to share or open up, I know Steve had said something about Dr. Dan Foster, and Jim wanted to say a prayer. And I gotta thank you guys for that. Me gwitch, me gwitch, me gwitch.
Teresa, thank you so much.
Zipping through so much.
That was a lot of information. What I did earlier, I put Teresa's email and my email as well. If you have some questions or some comments, or would like to get in touch with Teresa, I know she's very open to fielding questions via email. So feel free to utilize that. We're going to send you all a PDF version of this PowerPoint, so you'll have that for future reference. But again, I want to thank Teresa so much for the time and effort she put into this presentation, and to share it all with you like this. We had a great turnout today too. So thank you very, very much. I did post a link to our short survey in the chat box. You can do that now or at the end of the event, or you can wait and do that when you receive our follow-up email. It's up to you. And again, I want to give my deep felt thanks to Teresa for her time and effort today and leading up to today's presentation. We'll broadcast again next month for another behavioral health webinar. Until then, please stay safe, stay healthy, and stay connected. Thank you. Talk, Jack.
Yes.